Hey, welcome to Opportunity Cost. Today we are taking a look at Illumination, which is designed by Alf Seegert and published by Eagle Gryphon Games. Illumination is a 1 or 2 player tile laying game which takes about 45 minutes to play. It's got really unique, fabulous artwork and an unusual theme. The game takes place across the pages of multiple books within a medieval monastery. One player represents good, reverence, and holiness, controlling the forces of angels, knights, monks, and dogs. The other player is irreverent and seeks to meddle and interfere. This player is represented by demons, dragons, rabbits, and squirrels. Players have a small tableau of tiles that they must manage and play extremely carefully. Each turn, they'll place some of these on one of the central boards, and depending on how they do so, they'll choose between collecting ritual tokens, which can be spent for points, earning income, which allows one to buy cards and bend the rules, or entering conflict, which can earn points as well as deny points for your opponent. These goals are hard to achieve simultaneously, leaving lots of room for clever play, which provides you with maximum benefit while denying your opponent. Let's check it out. Gameplay occurs on several boards, each of which represents a book within the monastery. In the center of the table there are 3 of these, which correspond to the rows and columns of tiles on each player board. Tiles stored in row or column 1 can be played into book 1, while tiles stored in row and column 2 can be played into book 2, and so on. As players are seated across from one another, book 1 for one player is in fact book 3 for their opponent. Player boards also feature 7 spaces for storage, which is used for both money and ritual tokens. Another board is used for scoring. This also tracks the location of the abbot, which may be moved by either player, allowing them to exchange ritual tokens for points. There are also cards representing progress in battle stored below this board, but more on that in a bit. Each turn, you choose a row or column of tiles to place into the corresponding book. So if you choose the tiles in column 2, you'll place these in the margin of book 2 and determine from there where within the book they should go. You can place these on any spot showing a quill, and matching the color of the quill to the tile will earn you a coin. Matching the color to adjacent tiles will earn you a ritual token, and clever placement can earn multiple rewards. Additionally, placing tiles may either start or resolve conflict. Each type of tile has one counterpart controlled by your opponent, which it will fight. Monks fight dastardly, red-eyed rabbits, while knights fend off dragons, demons attack angels, and squirrels toil with dogs. Place a tile beside its counterpart, and they are engaged in conflict. Any adjacent tiles of these 2 types will join the conflict, and it can potentially remain unresolved across multiple turns. Eventually, when the edges of all the tiles involved are blocked by another type of tile, text, or the edge of the board, the conflict will be resolved. Majority rules. Whomever has more tiles involved in the conflict will flip the tiles of their opponent and place a marker indicating that they won that conflict on the scoreboard. Ties remain unresolved, but often can be manipulated later on. And that's because, in addition to placing tiles, players can spend their money at any time during their turn. For instance, to spend ritual tokens, the abbot needs to be on the correct spot, so players can move the abbot 1 coin per spot. When placing tiles, players may spend a coin to place it in an adjacent book instead. And finally, scriptorium cards can be purchased for 2 coins each. Remember how I mentioned manipulating things later on? There are 6 types of scriptorium cards, and each allows you to bend the rules in a unique way. For instance, you can place tiles onto spots covered by text, eject an opponent's tile from a book, or rearrange the tiles on your board before placement. Now, anytime you score points, you compensate your opponent in a small way. If you defeat them in combat, they earn 1 coin for each tile you flip. And every time you earn points by paying ritual tokens, your opponent draws a scriptorium card. Placing the last tile on a book causes the book to become closed, which prevents further manipulation even through the use of scriptorium cards. And the game ends when all 3 books are closed, or both players have passed, and whoever has the highest score wins. So how do you score points? If the abbot is in the correct spot, players can trade ritual tokens for points, and they'll earn more points for bigger trades. This opportunity is limited with only 3 trades available per type of token. And without much space to store your ritual tokens and money, often you can only pursue 1 or 2 of these at a time and potentially might have to take a lesser valued trade or risk getting stuck with the tokens. Face-up tiles placed on books are each worth 1 point, while face-down tiles are worth nothing. Tiles are only placed face down if you lose in combat, so combat losses directly reduce your score. There are also 2 endgame scoring conditions. Winning a particular type of combat, for instance, monks versus rabbits, more often than your opponent, is worth 5 points, and each player has a secret type of tile that they are trying to eliminate, and will score bonus points at the end of the game for doing so. Now, I love to look at the components and artwork of every game. I think physical qualities are one of the primary things that set board games apart from other types of entertainment and really make them enjoyable. In the case of Illumination, artwork and component quality is really good, but with a few exceptions. Starting with art, it's really unique and interesting. They hired a Tasmanian artist named Jake Seven, who primarily works on street art, these huge, gorgeous murals. I've got some links to his work in the description below, and you should definitely check it out. Overall, his art style translates into a fun, whimsical take on an older medieval style that I really like, but it's polarizing for sure, and I definitely recognize that it isn't for everybody. And on the component side of things are a bit hit and miss, and it feels like the game is a bit confused about exactly what it wants to be. Quality is great. The box is super stout, the tiles are nice and thick, and everything is really well printed, but a couple of the components are a bit lackluster. The boards are really thin, and even though there aren't a ton of components, it feels like there are a few extraneous ones. For instance, the battle scoring could simply have been printed on the scoreboard and just would have been left less fiddly overall. But perhaps the biggest concern with the components is actually the size of the game. I was expecting a small box 2-player game, something like Jaipur or Patchwork. Instead, this arrived in a box more typical of a game for 5 players, and it takes considerable table space to play. That isn't really a big deal, but it just speaks to how this game feels like it isn't sure if it wants to be a small box 2-player game or something bigger with some really deluxe components. Overall, Illumination is a solid game with quirky art and rewarding gameplay. It plays a lot like an abstract, but with a little bit of luck included. Its depth significantly exceeds its weight. While not heavy, there is surprising nuance and subtlety to the choices being made. Too often, tile-laying games are complete lightweights and come down to choosing whichever tile rewards you the most right now. While that's true here to an extent, and the game definitely rewards good placement, the other constraints mean you really need to consider a lot more than just what is a single tile placement worth. Do you play a tile to earn money and buy scriptorium cards, hoping that it will help you make an amazing play later on? Or maybe you try and begin a conflict. If you do, what are the chances you can resolve that conflict favorably before your opponent interferes? Or maybe there's an opportunity to collect 2 or more ritual tokens with a single tile. Do you have room to store them? Do you have enough funds to move the abbot? These are all considerations with each tile played, and tiles can achieve multiple of these things at the same time, so it's not a matter of strictly min-maxing each tile. This means it's often hard to know the real value of each move. There's multiple viable options on each turn, and it's up to you to decide how to maximize your points and what you anticipate your opponent might do. So, the most important question: should you get it? You should get this game if you enjoy abstracts, tile placement, and spatial considerations. If you've got a regular opponent and are looking for a game with a little bit more depth than average. And if you appreciate new artists and unusual art and themes. However, this game probably isn't for you if you hate abstracts or if you're looking for a compact game for travel. Now, I'm currently working on an interview with Alf Seegert, the designer of Illumination. So if you're interested in how this game came to be or want to know more about his design process, go ahead and subscribe, as I'll have that in the next couple of weeks. See you next time.